organizations should support women young girls from that place to be president of the student union, give them resources, support them, training and the rest of them. From that point, they don't need anybody. They don't need handouts anymore.
There must be a genuine desire to really include young people or young women in politics. Is there that desire from the older folks?
We have to take it beyond projects. Yes. It has to be a passion. It has to be a real desire. And we have to come together as a movement.
Hello and welcome to the Inclusive Governance Podcast. This is brought to you by the Nigerian Women Trust Fund with support from the Open Society Foundation and produced by Skill Hub Consulting, the producers of the Changemaker podcast series. I am your host, Esther Hadiza Ijiaku, and this is a space where we explore how governance can become more inclusive, participatory, and impactful, especially for women in Nigeria. Today's conversation is titled, The Future is Now, Young Women in Politics. We'll be exploring the barriers, opportunities, and pathways for young women to take their rightful place in shaping Nigeria's governance. To help us unpack this important conversation, I am joined by two remarkable guests. I'm looking forward to introducing them because there will be one question that will stick, that you will come up just from the topic, right? But first, I want to introduce to you Ezenwa Nwagu. Eze is one of the most prominent, active, and influential advocates for good governance, free and fair elections, and inclusive democracy in Nigeria. With roots as a student and youth leader during the tough military years, he has grown into a bold public intellectual and a dependable pillar of the pro-democracy movement. He currently serves as the executive director of the Pairing, Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, and sits on the board of several non-profit organizations. Welcome, Ezenwa. Or should I say Eze?
Eze is cool. Thank you very much.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And then secondly, we have Udo. is a lawyer and a policy expert with over 15 years of experience advancing inclusive governance, public health, and legal reform. He is a senior legal advisor with Resolve to Save Lives, where he has shaped key laws and policies embedding gender equity in governance. His expertise spans from health systems to electoral reforms, with publications that spotlight women participation in politics and the legal reforms needed to make inclusion a reality. Welcome, Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's nice being here.
Thank you. So now that we have the introductions out of the way, I'm going to ask the obvious question.
Okay.
We're talking about young women, but my guests are men. So anybody watching will say, why men? So what's your response to them, Eze?
Oh, quickly. Sometimes it's better that other people speak on your issues. When you speak about yourself, you could be accused of self-promotion. You need to have the sense of the honeybee. It swarms.
Okay.
And in swarming,
the collective,
the results are...
Well said. What of you? What response would you have?
Well, I agree with my senior brother Ezenwa in his position. But just to add that, in terms of making changes and improving systems, it's always good to listen to people who have been in the war front or the battlefront and glean ideas from there. So irrespective of what sex the person might be, it's what is majorly important is the idea, the recommendations, and the viewpoint that is important to be shared and to be understood and, to be carried upon by others.
Awesome. So basically what I'm comfortable because I'm joined by male allies here who have an understanding of the role, not taking over, but also just supporting and giving voice to the same goal or the same outcomes that we're expecting. So I'll start the questions with you, Eze. Can you please share your journey into civil society and advocacy? What shaped your motivation to get involved?
Interesting conversation. I really I'm reticent when it has to do with talking about myself. I always feel that it is better that other people do that. But I grew up in a middle class family. Not you could not say very comfortable, because my father particularly was a top civil servant and my mother was into business. But the injustices around the environment where I was at that time radicalized me. I went into the university, mommy's boy, but I saw oppression and I had no choice, really. The struggle chose me.
Oh, okay.
The struggle chose me. So I got aligned with some radical student group and lecturers at that point in time who took over the business of molding the person that eventually became or has become easy. And I'm grateful to them because of that push.
Awesome. So, when you hear terms like feminism, gender equity, equitable representation, what do they mean to you personally? And why do you think some men still feel uneasy when they hear these terms?
That's a very, very, very interesting question. And it's, I think maybe it's one of the biggest problems we have is always lack of information or miscommunication of words. And I think if you say that most men are uncomfortable, that's still very unscientific in my own perspective, because it might be the echo chamber of very few persons who are like not comfortable with. But once you understand what concept means and what they represent, you might not be averse to it, and then definitely you might support it, because words like feminism has been in existence for a very long time, and it represents the ideals of equality and equity in the society, and that's what all of us ought to push for and try to attain, whereby people are seen not because of their biological components or maybe the color of their skin or whatever features they possess, but people are seen as people and are treated as such. So that's why I believe that terms become difficult for people if they don't understand. And there's this very, very famous phrase we hear: people are always afraid of what they don't understand. That's why it's always important that in trying to get people to leave the plane of fear to more of the plane of understanding, they need to always educate, always explain, and always try to make people understand that things are not always the way it was represented by others.
I know that you said it's not scientific. We're making assumptions here, but with good reason, for anecdotal reasons. We hear not just men, actually, even some women are afraid. Once you just say feminism, they'll be like, I'm not among. Eze, what do you think? Why are people afraid of these terms? Once we pull out equality, feminism, and these other terms, people get afraid and want to take a stand against it.
Okay, let me stretch it beyond where I kept it.
Okay.
Maybe he said unscientific. I would say unstatistical.
Okay.
Unstatistical, because you have no many times when people say many, several, they hide things under those kind of. So an assumption is not always very nice, especially when you're having very strong conversations like the one that we're having. The challenge is the abuse of a drug does not reduce the effectiveness of that medicine. So what people see is sometimes those who mouth feminism and then are not examples of what it actually means. It does not mean it does not mean a fight against the male. That's not what feminism represents. But there are people who
that's the perception.
that perception, there are people who mouth that, live that way, not necessarily because even they themselves understand feminism. So, and I key into what MM said, understanding breaks that deadlock, or what you call fear. Once people understand each other, once people understand what it is, and say, oh, this Eze does not even represent
The idea.
chauvinism, male chauvinism. Maybe because I acted in a particular way. I'm not a representative of men. I'm Eze.
You are an individual.
Yes, who a lot of things, my environment, my upbringing, my sociological, environment has conditioned to behave in a certain way. If I knew better, I may act differently. So programs like this are helpful in beginning to shape minds, reset understanding. And I think that is why I want to applaud Women Trust Fund and your outfit for taking the initiative to have this podcast and say, look, there's a need for understanding and redefine, and that's important, redefine the meanings of terms in a way that makes people comfortable, that makes them want to support, what you're doing. Many times there is also the difference. There is also one of ignorance. There's another one of mischief. Not necessarily because people don't understand.
They just don't want to understand.
They don't want to muddle the water.
So the one you are dealing with is the one who is acting out of ignorance. The one who is just a cultural terrorist. Cultural terrorist is the name, women in my culture, in my religion, in my stuff, they hide under those things to advance evil. Not necessarily because they don't understand that this thing is not even what they even understand it, but they use it. You can use it for political advantage. You can use it for sociological advantage.
Yes.
So when you want to exclude people, the agenda can come in.
It's like giving a dog a bad name to hang it.
So when you simply want to say, if we want to divide family property so that I can take it alone, I say, no, women are not supposed to have. If I want to be the counselor and I don't want anybody to contest that,
reduce the competition.
So Nigeria is a country where people invest in exclusivity. They enjoy exclusivity. And they can use anything. It can be gender, it can be religion, it can be tribe, just anything that can help them. It can be age.
To have an advantage.
It can be age. I'm older than you, so keep quiet, shut up, wait for your turn. Those kind of terms are all exclusionary trends that we need to unpack beyond just
I mean, you just said something about, when the whole campaign for Not Too Young to Run started, they were really harping on this perception that you just mentioned about it will come to your turn, or it will be your turn. But somehow we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and young people that were young before are now aging out, and it's still not their turn. So just in line with making, trying to level the playing field, there was the court decision in 2022 about 35% affirmative action, and it generated a lot of mixed reactions. Men, women, how do you feel about it, and what do you think the government of the day, and do you think that the government of the day will act on it?
Okay, that's a very, very, very good question, because as a lawyer, I was very interested in that case, and I would say my position is very extreme on that case. In the sense, when I say extreme, I mean the interpretation and the consequences of that judgment. First of all, government made a policy, and the policy stated that some percentage of political position should be kept for women to improve women participation in decision making, not just in politics, but in decision making. Now, it had to take non-government organization to put government to tax. And then there's a court decision. Now, the primary beneficiary of that judgment is the Ministry of Women Affairs. But since 2023 till date, I don't think the ministry has taken steps to either enforce the judgment or even implement its own primary policy, which was the beginning. I think the judgment dealt on issues around, can that policy be implemented across government programs, across government structures, looking at the constitution, which, when Ezewa has spoken about cultural terrorists who will now use the, the issue around the constitution says non-discrimination. So when you're trying to provide advantage to one class of persons or one group, you're now promoting discrimination to the other groups. However, the courts saw reasons in the arguments preferred and actually asked that that policy should be implemented. Now, government itself is not even interested, and that's why we have the problem. It's the issue about sincerity of government itself in trying to push for change. Is it because there are some political backlash that will happen? That we can't tell. But the first step is to actually put a magnifying glass on the Ministry of Women Affairs. Are they really interested in promoting equity in the system? Are they really interested in making sure that women are really, really empowered in terms of being part of decision makings? And if the Ministry of Women Affairs would take up the task to really, implement their own policy and ask other agencies, political officers to follow that policy, I don't think that judgment should be a problem.
So I was going to skip and go to another question, but I really want to hear what Eze has to say about the fact that zeroed in on the Ministry of Women Affairs. Do you agree? Do you have a different perspective on it? And basically what I'm asking is, do you think that this government will actually roll out or implement the ruling?
I can't agree more with but I know that the big challenge for our country is that there is no consequence for lack of political will. So people talk about it, the government lacks the political will, but nobody ever says, if you don't have political will, what happens to you? So that's the big question. So when you talk about Ministry of Women Affairs, okay, one woman in a cabinet of 49 people, 36.
What are the odds?
Okay, let's just say there are other 2 or 3 other women in the cabinet. First, the lobby to get your colleagues to see from because it's not a dictatorship. You can't, you have to build consensus. And the challenge again is, who is appointed? Where is the person appointed from? Is the person appointed from a women constituency? Representation is important. So if you say Ministry of Women Affairs, there is a minister there. The woman, did she come? Is she a candidate is she a women candidate? Many times, if I say you represent us, there is the power of representation. That power of representation there is no connection between appointees and the people who make a demand of them.
Correct.
In many cases, when she even is appointed, it is the women that will write petition. And some men that don't appoint her. Then when she's appointed, they will go and pay courtesy. We have to understand representation and what it means. So if I hear your name that you are being appointed, you come from the media civil society constituency, we give you support. We follow you to National Assembly on the day of your confirmation. Do you understand?
Yes.
We wear gele, come out, and we are in the National Assembly saying this is our own.
It's visible.
When you are appointed, we will use the video of our photos in the National Assembly supporting you to say you represent us. I'm going somewhere. The lack of connection between people who are appointed and the people who are making demands on them needs to be, that gap needs to be closed.
Inclusive Governance Podcast is brought to you by Nigerian Women Trust Fund with support from Open Society Foundations and produced by Skill Hub Consulting.
If you say I am your own, I need to see how I am your own.
Yes.
It's not just by okay. You can organize reception for women who have been appointed into positions and then hand them over a checklist.
Yeah.
That reception does not happen. It will not happen because we are territorial. I get appointed and then you bring one leg and come in and say, women, I'll just be looking at you.
But do men do it? Do they have the receptions?
Go and see newspapers. You see people who are appointed. You see 20, 50 people doing congratulatory adverts. You will see companies.
Where their interest lies.
In defining interest, open definition of interest is important. So I'm not making excuses for those people, but I'm saying that the demand side has a responsibility. That responsibility, they shack that responsibility and just think that because you say I am a woman or I am a man, then it is automatic.
Yes.
That's once you come to me. If, for instance, business, I'm just saying so.
Yes.
Business promoted your being appointed. That business has no gender. It has no tribal mark.
Yeah.
So when they come, they are looking for contracts. And say, we supported you. We helped you. So I've been thinking about what I'm talking about now. Generally, even for positions, people who are contesting election.
Yeah.
Those of us in civil society and the media, when people are contesting election, we claim we are neutral. Yes,
and then after we make demands.
I'm running election. You pretend you are neutral.
You're not pretending. You say you're not pretending, right?
No, I'm saying that we are neutral.
Yes, I know.
Okay, and then I get elected by people who
were not neutral.
Who were not neutral. And you want me to leave those people who are not neutral?
Okay, so now, given that we already have this challenge and we have lessons to learn, obviously, we have lessons to learn. From your perspective, what practical steps can we make to encourage more inclusive political participation in Nigeria, especially for young women? Because that's now bringing us home to the topic. How do we encourage more young women in politics, especially because it's not like we have a lot of examples, really. You are pointing out where the gaps are.
I think my perspective is very, very simple. And I think lots of recommendations have flown over the last 10 years that I've been in this space to really promote participation of young women in politics. It's the same way we did when we tried to promote participation of young persons.
Young people, yes.
There must be a genuine desire to really include young people or young women in politics. Is there that desire from the older folks? I don't want to also sound unscientific, but looking at this space, I don't really see lots of like grooming, mentoring, strategic grooming and mentoring of younger women for decision-making positions in Nigeria.
I know that. Okay, go ahead.
I had the privilege of working with a friend. She's also a lawyer. And she started, in the various groups, women group, and a principal, former Joy Emodi, was, appointed. Sorry, not appointed. She won an election to the Senate. And what she did first was that all the women who were her mentees, she gave them political appointments as SLAs, opening them up to
more
corridors of power.
Yes.
The opportunity might not necessarily be a job with the government, but understanding how the system works, understanding what could be the entry point for a person in government is very important, because from outside you might say, oh, the only way to be important is being in a political position, but that's more or less a very, very, I wouldn't say
Narrow,
fallacy,
yeah.
but it's a very myopic
Yeah.
position, because power can be, gained from various positions. It could be gained from appointive positions, like being a member of a board and also serving in various government capacities. For me, I think that might be one of the low entry points in really encouraging more women in politics. Then also other factors, which is something that I believe that is being pushed now, is trying to get special seats for women. I know it's a very, very contested point and not everybody is on board with it, but I think the latest argument for the seats being temporary for few election cycle might, gain some tractions. And yeah, that might be one. And then the third one is financial empowerment. We should not shy away from that. Politics, power is intrinsically tied to financial position and able to really engage. Basically, as little as being able to watch this podcast, you must be able to afford data. So how many young persons across the country do have this financial capability? So what are we doing to improve their financial state? And this also, how many can afford special training? Training on maybe communications, training on other aspects.
I mean, you touch a good point, which I think is one of the things that Nigerian Women Trust Fund is doing in terms of mentoring and training of politicians, female politicians, mentoring and all of that to improve their skills and competence, basically packaging, all of those things. But you touched on systems, government. I wanted to ask Eze, if you had the opportunity to directly advise the government on inclusivity in governance, what would you tell them?
I will wait before I advise.
What would you?
Yes, I will wait before I advise government. You know why?
Why?
You see, there's a they are not carrying us along mentality in Nigeria. Nobody carries anybody along. In fact, it is in the interest of the system that you don't come in.
That you don't come in?
Yes.
That's the exclusion I was talking about.
Yes, that's what is exclusion.
Status quo.
It is it's deliberate. There's a intentionality.
Cartel way of doing
politics. You have to have a desire. You have to create a system that helps people to come in, that empowers them to understand that it is a struggle, that it is not a giving. It's not presented to you.
So people don't wait for the door to be open.
No, it's not presented to you a la carte. Okay? So the collapse of the girls' brigade, those are training grounds. You went to university, there's a student union, you have departmental association, you have faculty association. You didn't try to, who will help you? Who is going to help you? You see, in the first place is that department. We have said democratize girls prefects, boys preschool prefect, democratize it. Let students elect and let young girls in the secondary school not just say to be girls prefect. There is nothing like that. They should be to be head girl. They should banish the office of the head girl. Let them contest to be
head girls.
Head. Whatever it means.
Yes.
And in your department, don't go for welfare, director of welfare. Don't go for vice president. Go leader. For the departmental head of that department. Start thinking that way. If you bring newspapers here now, articles, if you bring 10 newspapers, find 10 young girls, give them the newspapers and just be watching them. You'll be shocked that It is the human angle stories. Unfortunately, the collapse of Mills and Boons, those things, reading, people, I'm telling you, is a challenge. So we need to unpack that area. Support women to run for president of the student union of their universities. And many are already doing that. Support them. Organizations should support women, from young girls from that place, to be president of the student union, give them resources, support them, training, and the rest of them. From that point, they don't need anybody. They don't need handouts anymore. They will by themselves begin to take positions. When you go for meetings in the office, they are having a conversation. You are quiet. The men are discussing. Nobody told you to shut up. Nobody told you to keep quiet.
But Eze, you know that we're not. There's already pre-existing inequality. There's already socialization.
It is in your head. Unpack it. No, I'm serious. I have a daughter, and I'm not telling you this. Unpack it. Is that pre-existing? Everything pre-existing. For the men, it is not as if the door is open too. It's not as if the door is open. You have to have a gender lens to have this conversation. It is for the men. There's also a lot of struggle. If you are from underprivileged background, if you don't have a shoulder to ride on, if you don't have a godfather, okay? But there are people who break through all of this and begin to push through.
I agree.
Let me conclude my conversation. Create role models as well.
Yes.
There are role models. In which milieu did Fumi Rayol and Son Kuti live?
Okay.
In a milieu in which the social conditions were even worse. That women cannot drive cars, are not allowed to drive. One day she went and drove the car, and not what happened? Hajia Gambo Sawaba was growing in a more conservative northern environment, and she thrived in those places. Many of you today who are thriving in your professions should tell your stories.
Okay.
So you put your stories out there so that these young girls can be inspired by your own struggles and how you won. And then for my colleagues in the NGO space, everything is not a project. Projects die.
End.
They end. So get tired the education, get tired then you get support, and then once the support is over, you move to another matter. And then when you move to that matter, for you, it is just not about the desire, the real desire to shift the needle, but to see how many grants that we can get on the struggles of our own people. And then we mount those things. So we have to take it beyond projects.
Yes.
It has to be a passion. It has to be a real desire. And we have to come together as a movement.
You make a good point about, and you've identified barriers, you've also made suggestions. But one of the things that you said is what was the last point you made?
About projects?
About projects. And the fact that funding has now reduced. There's less funding. So now it's going to come out more, whether you are in it for the funding or you are in it to make a difference, because there are many ways to skin a cat.
Yaga has a lot of lessons to teach.
So we need to hear stories.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Stories.
In volunteerism.
Yes.
In how an organization was set up, and for 6 years, organization that has 4 lawyers, qualified lawyers, for 6 years they had no pay and they had no grant.
Interesting. Okay, so
very interesting.
What is your vision? Because this conversation has gone so fast, we're going to take the last point, which is what's your vision for the future of inclusive governance in Nigeria? What role do you see young people playing in shaping that future? I know that you're talking about but men too have the same challenge.
I didn't say they have the same.
They are also challenged. They have barriers and everything. But also, we can't run away from the fact that
identify that women
there are unique.
But what I'm saying is that men have challenges. So, but how let's not stay on the challenges. Let us stay on what we can do much more to break the things that are put before us as obstacles. When you see a deliberate obstacle, you don't romance the obstacle.
Yes.
You don't romance the obstacle. And many a times we romance the obstacle. And then you say, poverty, whatever. All of those things they are stepping stones. You see somebody who, you said, do you have education? He said, no. Do you want to go back to school? He said, yes. You say, okay, we can pay tuition. They say, but the person has a phone. The person has a hairdo that is... And I say this. I had a classmate.
It says a lot.
I had a classmate in the university. She used to have what we call kodamburu. That's
shaved hair.
Yes. And then she wore one jeans. It was later she said she was a support for a family. She's an orphan, so she's been living with that family
like a help
till she's in the university. And in our conversation, she told me, what is hair? The hair that she would do and get tired.
So it's prioritization of...
Yes.
So we can romance obstacles. And that's what I'm saying. So government all over the world are irresponsible. If you don't know that, you better know that today.
But they're held accountable.
That's what we are doing. But what I'm telling you is that by their nature, why are people rejecting democracy all around the world? Why is there protest all over the place? Why are people challenging their governments? If they were responsible, there will not be any challenge. So the challenge is stop romancing these obstacles that are put on your way. What are the ingenious, creative energies that you can bring to bear to overcome those obstacles? When you have done all you need to do according to the Bible to stand,
you stand there.
Stand.
Okay, I'll come to you to have your last.
Well, I would say it's the last position, but I would say it's very I think inclusive governance is really, really very, very difficult thing these days because of, for me, my perspective, it's poverty. We think governance can really work without people really being financially strong. So I always link inclusive governance with poverty of resources, poverty of ideas, and poverty of opportunities. Until we can really sort those enablers, because I see those as enablers for inclusive governance, we would only be writing lovely articles, printing good reports and manuals, and not necessarily making the kind of changes needed. Because if person A and B are not progressing in similar equilibrium or similar planes, you can't really have inclusive governance. And it's just to restate what Ezenwa said. We live in a society that glamorizes classism, exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
And until the society itself starts thinking about removing those barriers, then you can't really have inclusive governance. And that will also entail means you can't really have more women in politics, which is really what should be our long-term pursuit. Yeah,
thank you so much. I mean, this conversation went so fast. I've heard so much around challenging women, challenging government, challenging ourselves, to romance the obstacles, as Eze said, but kind of think outside the box to overcome some of those obstacles, which is a challenge to the young women really who want to join politics. Aside the system, and even if tomorrow now that bill is passed, we'll still be talking about these same things that you've raised, about capacity, about competence, and all of that. So on that note, I just want to say thank you. I know this is just the beginning. Yeah. Thank you to you, Eze, and thank you to you, MM, for joining us and sharing such thoughtful insights and experiences. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on the Inclusive Governance Podcast. It is produced by the Nigerian Women Trust Fund with support from Open Society Foundations and produced by Skill Hub Consulting. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, share, and join us again next week for another episode as we continue to explore what inclusive governance really means. I'm your host, Esther Hadiza Ijaku. And until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and keep building the future we want. Thank you.